Welcome to the Changing Normal podcast, episode 6. This is June 9th. Hi, Ben. Good to see you.
Hey Dan, I think we're missing on one this week, eh?
Yeah, that makes us the deadly duo, right?
Yeah, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that one.
Yeah. I thought I'd kick this off with a quote. Reasoning will never make a man correct an ill opinion, which by reasoning he never acquired.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I think we're gonna kind of spin off that for our main topic.
I was going to
Um,
say that sounds like it'll tie
yeah,
really well
yeah.
into our main topic.
But for starters, what did we do this week? I feel like for me, this has kind of been a busy, monotonous week. But let's see, I did do some repairs on my little lawnmower. Poor thing is a little undersized and overworked, so got to replace some belts.
Oh,
It had like a 3-inch chunk where it was just strings, so that's kind of on the edge.
really pushing its limits.
Yeah, yeah. How about you? What's been up?
Um, I've actually saw a quote from Ryan Mickler. He does the Order of Man podcast,
Hmm.
which I listen to every now and then when I want to take a break from all the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin podcasts that I
Yeah,
listen
yeah,
to.
totally.
And it was on Twitter, and he tweeted, there comes a time where you can't just be an information uh, consumer. You need to actually start implementing it. Like, as an adult and as a man,
Hmm.
there comes a point where you got to stop just ingesting all the information and just actually work on it. So, like, some of the examples was, he said, "You know how to start a podcast? We'll start a podcast.
Hmm.
You know how to have perfect form while deadlifting? Go deadlift." And I just got thinking, like I spend a lot of time listening and reading and just kind of consuming information and not really actually implementing it or putting it into practice, which is my bad. And I'm really working on trying to, just set the book down and actually go do what the book was saying, or and the reason being is that I want my son to grow up and see me as a doer, not just a consumer, someone who adds value to life. So I've been reading the Bible with him in the mornings and just kind of trying to put into practice what I've learned and make things a little bit better every day.
Hmm. Yeah, that kind of made me think of the quote, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Yeah, that's
R-
another. I like that one.
Yeah, yeah, same. Really a reminder to just go out and do that. I mean, do one thing today if you can.
Yeah,
Um, so I have a hard time with that, I think sometimes, because I want to figure out how everything works before attempting it. And it's often not a practical way to approach life.
yeah. I've always been a very methodical person. I liked having things thought out and planned, and you know, uh, to borrow the colloquialism, have all your ducks in a row before you actually
Mm,
go out and do it. And so that quote just kind of gave me a little jolt in the butt and said,
mhm.
kind of get it done. Don't just sit around thinking about how to do it.
Yep.
And
Good
then
planning is good, but you can't expect to perfect it before you.
there's always the unseen. The unseen always pops up. So I've
Hmm.
been working on trying to just roll with the punches as I implement things.
Yeah. I think I really liked some of the permaculture design teaching I've taken. And that's they basically really emphasize that even though you might put a lot of work into your first draft, you should never build your first draft. You're constantly adapting and changing as you gather more information. And so the design process is really more of, I think, of pushing you to think about things as whole systems, think about the parts and how they fit together.
Right.
So it's more about the process than mapping out your final destination when you haven't even started building it, because you're going to find out a lot of things as you go. And it's all about adapting.
Yeah. And then we did the Bitcoin presentation. That went. I felt it went pretty well, and I'm pretty sure that Owen would love to be here to comment on this. So we'll probably get his take next time he's here.
Yeah, I'll probably have to go back and ask him about that anyway. Owen is out this week for are we saying undisclosed reasons?
I think he's throwing darts at the dartboard trying to figure out why.
I assumed it was an alien abduction. Probably something boring.
He was on that note. I heard who was I listening to? I just heard a quote on the radio, and it was a little skit from JP Sears, and he was talking about how, like if you think about aliens, and then, well, what about like if you're fishing? What are we to the fish? The fish are just swimming around, and all of a sudden one of them just gone, and then he disappears and comes back, and he says, "Guys, you won't believe it. I got like hauled up to the water, and I was in the hands of this weird creature, and it was holding me out of the air." And they're all like, yeah, sure. I was just laughing. So funny little quote I heard this week.
I love JP Sears. For people who haven't seen the JP Sears life jacket skit, that is a must watch.
Oh man, he's got so many good ones. Able to use the humor and comedy to talk about things that are pretty taboo these days. And then using that as a springboard to actually like get somewheres in conversations. Pretty impressive.
Yep. So let's jump into crazy crypto corner for this week. And the topic I picked out is Ethereum a shitcoin? I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say that. Is this family friendly enough, or?
It depends on how much farm work you do.
Yeah. With my background, I didn't consider it a bad word, but we'll hope we don't get nasty comments for that. I also think it's alliteratively appropriate because, most who have done a lot of thinking in the crypto space, there's Bitcoin, and then everything else is a shitcoin.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Looking at all just the numerous other projects that are out there, the altcoin, and then when you actually look at what Bitcoin is and how it strives to be the best, and the sound, like everything behind it, you just kind of, and I know personally all the jumps and chances I've taken on other coins, it's kind of like, oh well, kind of regret those. Wish it had been in Bitcoin, not these other ones.
On the pro side, I will say Ethereum does seem to have a revenue model that is, it's working currently. I mean, they're making money off their network transactions. The network is busy, so busy we've mentioned before that transaction fees have had crazy spikes.
Yes.
So right. They're doing something. And their goal really is to provide a service. And there's definitely other platforms building on top of the Ethereum blockchain. But I think people want to know like which is going to be the best, or they think Ethereum might compete with Bitcoin, and they don't understand that they're really two totally different things.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's not even an apple and an orange. It's more like an apple and a steak.
I like that one. Well, no, it totally is. Like, even just in how the network is secured, right? Ethereum's proof of stake. And
are they not yet? I think.
Oh, is it not yet?
Because that's supposed to be Ethereum 2.0, which has been promised and is not here yet. But
how long has it been promised for?
Well, they've been right on the edge for, I don't know, a year, 2 years. But it sounds like they're getting close. I actually had somebody say, well, with Ethereum shifting to proof of stake and becoming more efficient than Bitcoin's proof of work, isn't it going to beat Bitcoin and become the number one? And to that, I'm like, no, like I said, they're totally different things. Bitcoin is the best sound money that we have currently. And Ethereum isn't even attempting to be a sound money.
Right. Well, yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it's more providing a service, right? Like a lot of
Hmm.
the other altcoins and stuff are ERC20 tokens, which is they're on top of the Ethereum
Hmm.
platform.
Yep.
So
They require the Ethereum blockchain to continue running. So yep, they're kind of like a foundation, and there's like little, I don't know, you could consider them a mall foundation maybe, and there's tons of little stores popping up on top. I don't so they may have a really good future there, providing a service. I mean, maybe they become the I'm trying to think of what company in the current tech space, maybe the Google
mm,
of blockchain. It's
yeah.
possible. There will be competitors, so they'll have to continue to provide better services than uh, chains like Atom and Algo that want to compete with them. Um, but they aren't competing in the sound money sphere. And I think it's also
No.
worth noting that Ethereum is centralized.
Oh yeah,
So
big
that's
part of it.
another concern. Um,
There was a
as
pre-mine, right?
I'm not sure
Was there
about
a
that one.
pre-mine? I seem to recall reading that it was a pre-mined, and a lot of the people, um, a lot of people who were in on it off the get-go got like 70% of the original Ethereum or
Hmm.
something like that.
Wow.
Which I'm not really sure how that works, because Ethereum also burns. Like they do a burn of
Hmm.
ETH. So
Okay. An attempt to provide um, some deflation, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
and well, I know especially with NFTs, there's a lot of
Mhm.
burning.
Yeah.
Um,
But we do know that it's centralized to the point that they can actually reverse transactions. So this is totally opposed to the principles that we like about Bitcoin, where it's decentralized and transactions are irreversible.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
but Ethereum
exactly.
has had reports of where they actually went and reversed, maybe they were exchange hacks or something similar to that, and they went and reversed
Mhm.
those, which is a great thing when it's only theft that's being reversed. But it's a bad thing when you have a highly centralized model of control that can alter transactions. That gives people the power to censor and to take people's money, and that's really what we don't like about the government currency is the amount of control they have over it and whether or not they're going to wield it responsibly.
Yeah, because the Ethereum overlords, let's say, they like legitimately rolled the blockchain back when that
Yeah.
attack happened, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks. Now, granted, I did buy some Ethereum, and some of it I got rid of and put into Bitcoin, but that was just because I couldn't get it from one spot to the other. I couldn't figure out the fees or whatever. It was really
Hmm.
early on.
Mm.
Um, but the rest of it, I'm just hanging on to, and hopefully I'll be able to get rid of it at a, if not break even point, because
Hmm.
I think Ethereum's down like 50% since from when I bought it. So just like another dough moment.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I also heard that they were likely going to end up being called a security.
Yeah, there's a strong possibility, and that's going to happen with all these coins where there's a pre-mine and then you have that centralized group selling it. Again, totally different than Bitcoin, which had no pre-mine
Yeah.
and had no central authority. Um, so that one's a legal issue, and we don't know how that's going to pan out. But there's definitely a lot of um, opinion from people who understand this space. You say the Security and Exchange Commissions in the USA is going to rule a lot of these cryptos securities. And whether or not there's any penalties imposed on these companies, we don't know that yet.
Mm,
Because right now we really only have Ripple in court at the moment over this. And, well,
right.
actually, isn't Library
Oh, actually,
in
yes,
court
that's
as
right.
well?
They definitely were when I first joined Odysee and got
Yeah,
onto
I think
there,
they're still in
and they're
court
still.
being called a security as well. So that's not a great thing to be looking at as a possibility for your future, to be dragged before
Yeah, that's
federal
true.
court by the SEC. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be a happy camper if that was me.
But I've also heard Ethereum being like, we talk about Bitcoin being the digital gold of our day, and I've heard Ethereum be compared to Bitcoin as gold, and Ethereum as oil. So like it's one of the longest altcoins, shitcoins running now, isn't
Mhm.
it? So
Yeah, it's definitely the number one if you look at everything else. There's Bitcoin and there's everything else, while Ethereum is the number one as far as uh, potential investment opportunity.
yeah, that makes
But
sense.
that's something we'll just have to watch.
I'll be keeping my eye on it, hoping to get rid of it.
So our main topic for this podcast, I wanted to discuss Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity. And I saw a cool little animated video. And full credit to Sprout School for putting this together. And I'll definitely link that in the show notes for people who want to watch. And I'm going to try share screen here and we're going to watch that. It's a 6-minute video.
Bonhoeffer is one of the heroes of the faith for me. Just everything that happened in Germany, and how he didn't bend or break. He stood up for what he believed in, and stayed true to what he believed was truth. And it's a super inspiring story.
Mm-hmm.
In the darkest chapter of German history, during a time when incited mobs threw stones into the windows of innocent shop owners, and women and children were cruelly humiliated in the open, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a young pastor, began to speak publicly against the atrocities that the regime had produced. After years of trying to change people's minds, Dietrich Bonhoeffer came home one evening, and his own father had to tell him that 2 men were waiting in his room to take him away. In prison, Bonhoeffer began to reflect on how his country of poets and thinkers had turned into a collective of cowards, crooks, and criminals. Eventually, he concluded that the root of the problem was not malice, but stupidity. In his famous Letters from Prison, Bonhoeffer argued that stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice, because while one may protest against evil, it can be exposed and prevented by the use of force. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict a stupid person's prejudgment simply need not be believed, and when they are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential, as incidental. In all this, the stupid person is self-satisfied and, being easily irritated, becomes dangerous by going on the attack. For that reason, greater caution is called for when dealing with a stupid person than with a malicious one. If we want to know how to get the better of stupidity, we must seek to understand its nature. This much is certain. Stupidity is, in essence, not an intellectual defect, but a moral one. There are human beings who are remarkably agile intellectually, yet stupid, and others who are intellectually dull, yet anything but stupid. The impression one gains is not so much that stupidity is a congenital defect, but that under certain circumstances, people are made stupid, or rather, they allow this to happen to them. People who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals in groups, and so it would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem. It becomes apparent that every strong upsurge of power, be it of a political or religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity, almost as if this is a sociological, psychological law, where the power of the one needs the stupidity of the other. The process at work here is not that particular human capacities, such as intellect, suddenly fail. Instead, it seems that under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and, more or less consciously, give up an autonomous position. The fact that the stupid person is often stubborn must not blind us from the fact that he is not independent. In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with him as a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. He is under a spell, blinded, misused, and is abused in his very being. Having thus become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil, incapable of seeing that it is evil. Only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. Here, we must come to terms with the fact that in most cases, a genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. Until then, we must abandon all attempts to convince the stupid person. Bonhoeffer died due to his involvement in a plot against Adolf Hitler at dawn on the 9th of April 1945 at Flossenburg concentration camp, just 2 weeks before soldiers from the United States liberated the camp. Action springs not from thought, but from a readiness for responsibility. The ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world that it leaves to its children, Bonhoeffer once said. Check the description below to read Bonhoeffer's original text, After 10 Years. For more information about Bonhoeffer or to download this video without background music, go to sproutschools.com.
Man, there's so much. There's so much in that video.
Videos are published under the Creative Commons license. That means our videos are free and anyone can download
One
and
moment.
play them for personal use. And public schools,
Everything's frozen, but that one tab that has the audio going.
training, online courses, or designing
Of
new
course.
curriculums. To help us stay independent and support our work, you can join our patrons and contribute. Just visit patreon.com/sprouts. Even $1 can make a difference.
That's one thing we don't have is a Patreon page. Maybe we should do that. Get some tiered content going.
I do like the lightning tipping better than the Patreon model, but
Oh,
a lot of people
100%.
aren't on lightning tipping. But I think that's a yet.
Yes,
They
I
aren't on
agree.
lightning tipping yet. It is the way of the future. Yeah. So I love that production. First of all, I mean, if for people who are listening audio only, you should definitely go check that out. And I got to admit, it's a serious subject matter, but I almost want to chuckle at some of the drawings that were happening there.
Man, where do you want to start with that?
Maybe we'll just go down the actual excerpt of the letter.
Sure.
The letters from prison, and I highlighted a few things I thought were particularly interesting to me. And I also highly recommend that people go and read the full text of these letters themselves, or at least the relevant excerpt we're talking about.
Can we link that to the show notes?
Yep, we're going to drop that in the show notes.
Sweet.
Someone will anyway. It's gonna.
Owen's not here, but we rely on his technical expertise.
We're gonna assign it to him.
Oh my goodness.
So it started right off by saying stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. So quite a strong claim right off the bat. And one little thought I had on this, that maybe stupidity isn't the best word in our cultural context, I guess. And I think the word I feel should be in that place is more ignorance, because we often use stupidity as a reflection on a lack of intelligence. And I
Right.
feel like the aim of this short essay basically is that people can be intelligent but still be afflicted by what they're calling stupidity here. And I feel like I would rather call it ignorance in my mind. It's more understandable that way. I think
Well,
it's
and
easier to see that ignorance and intelligence can coexist.
I would probably imagine that the context of 1940s Germany, stupidity was probably tightly correlated with ignorance, I'd imagine, which is probably why he
I
runs with
assume it was
that.
written in German, and this is a translation. But
Yeah, that's true.
so, but as it's used here, it's not saying that people are lacking intelligence completely.
Yeah, well, it even
Mhm.
addressed that.
Yep. So against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict one's prejudgment simply need not be believed. In such moments, the stupid person even becomes critical. And when facts are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential, as incidental.
I've seen that
I've seen that
once
in
or twice.
person. It can happen in surprising ways at times. I'll give one example of when several years ago I was having a fairly light discussion of some points of the climate change issue.
Mhm.
And I dropped one statistic that came from the UN's, I believe it's IPCC,
Okay.
either IPC or IPCC. So I expected that was an accepted authority, particularly since I was being slightly skeptical and wanting to steel man, not straw man. And the response I got was, well, that was probably made up. And my jaw dropped.
What's when you're thinking when you're trying, or at least for me, when I'm trying to think critically about something and use logic uh to address it, and just be factual and approach things in that manner, in a truthful manner, whenever it's like the video talked about signs and slogans, whenever it almost should be expecting it, or I feel after this last few years, it should be expecting it, but it often just takes me aback, because I'm, generally speaking, and this could probably just go into regular rules of engagement for conversation or debate or whatever, definition of terms and goal of the conversation or debate, but often taken aback with so much that I don't really know where to go from there. Like it says, there's and when they talk about in the video there, they talked about often needs a dismantling or a freeing, unchaining, for an external freeing to kind of work on the inside. It's kind of just makes it. Yeah, I guess I've always just kind of been taken aback and wasn't really expecting it to be my point to be refuted in such a way.
And it's interesting to me. It said stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem. So it's definitely referring to power hierarchy. And so I wonder what the balance is of people maybe rejecting or releasing their own responsibility for critical thought versus the simple social power structure dominating over that independent thought.
Well, it takes work. Yeah, like takes work to be responsible, takes work to research and be well informed. it also brings with it the risk of being wrong.
Mm,
We hate being wrong in our society today. And, if some of the feedback on this podcast is like, oh, you're very wrong. And the evidence is given for X, Y, and Z, why I'm wrong, then hopefully I'm humble enough to accept that. But the sociological side of it, that kind of makes me think of like, mob mentality almost. And kind of you talked about like the power structure, and that kind of makes me think about just a general laziness to not put in that work to be prepared, or
mm.
thinking about, or to put the work in to be prepared and think about it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one factor. I'm not sure it's the principal factor in this, because I really wonder if it's not that natural biological drive for survival. And I think we all inherently have that programmed fear of being kicked out of our community in a way, and that drive to be a member of the successful communities, the ones that are on the way up and not the ones that are on the way down. You can definitely see human behavior in general is very cliquish, I guess you could say, in smaller group levels, and tribal at a larger level.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, fear being wrong, fear being kicked out. It's crazy how powerful a driving factor fear is.
Mm.
You just make people afraid, and then not slam the fear right away, because oftentimes when just hit with the deluge of things, we tend to draw back as humans, whether it's positive things or negative things, especially negative things. But oh crap, I'm losing my train of thought. But I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, an earlier episode, just kind of that oh, I lost my train of thought talking too much.
You're going in a good direction, though.
Trying to get there.
This is a complex one, but I'm going to jump to the next section I underlined here, which says that the process at work is not that particular human capacities, for instance, the intellect, suddenly atrophy or fail. Instead, it seems that under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and more or less consciously give up establishing an autonomous position toward the emerging circumstances. So it seems to me that the key point in this claim is that the impact of power structures that we see rising are so powerful in the human mind that they can easily deprive us of any autonomy.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's a super I'm I'm very practical thinker and simple thinker. I think about complex issues like this. And we've been talking about doing this one for a while, and I've been thinking about it for a while. And just kind of see this loss of autonomy over the last couple of years. And I feel like I can draw so many correlations to Bonhoeffer's theory to the last 2 years. It's just kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, I think we've seen that phenomenon of rising power in governments and other central institutions, health institutions, for example. And there's also no balancing power. So it's very dominating. if you look at how there's nobody playing off against it, there's not even a I guess dichotomy, because I think it's easier to maintain sort of moderation and autonomy if you have two minorities that are equal going up against it, and then you can still have that autonomous minority as well. And maybe it's like a third and a third and a third of the population, or however it might
Right.
work out. But you definitely see the surrendering of autonomy when there's a dominating power force without any opposition.
Because generally everything has checks and balances. As mankind, we're able to somewhat overthrow the seemingly natural order of things. I mean, we still eventually fall prey to it ourselves, but we can stay the inevitable as human beings. So, like you said, the rising powers, there will be a check and a balance coming at some point. It's inevitable, because I can't imagine that what has been out of balance for so long is going to maintain that. It's going to take a lot of steam to do so.
Yep, true. I'm going to jump ahead to the next underlined bit. He is under a spell, blinded, misused, and abused in his very being. So that was an interesting. Blinded, definitely true.
Mhm.
Slogans, catchwords. Yep. That's rather than critical thinking.
Yeah.
Difficult to have a discussion when that's happening. And incapable of seeing what is evil, I think, was the part of that I found most troubling. This is where the danger of diabolical misuse lurks, for it is this that can once and for all destroy human beings. When the human conscience is suppressed by, I guess, these power structures, I think that's what's dangerous to the people who oppose it. The remnant who want to maintain a critical voice and bring up opposing counterpoints.
Yeah, because our consciences is where the moral code lies. You know, he talks about it being like a moral problem, and a lot of things will boil down to morality or a loss of morality in our society today.
So what you're saying is you can't derive morality from a slogan?
No, probably not. I mean, people would probably say that they're intrinsically linked. But yeah, I would argue that the underworkings of the thinking, or I mean, even a slogan, like a slogan eventually is boiled down from an idea, but just a big wouldn't have the strong underpinnings of morality like an autonomous, critically thought argument.
So if slogans are derived from a root, a philosophical idea of some type, then part of being autonomous and a critical thinker would be finding what that root is behind any slogan.
Yeah.
So the final bit was probably the one I spent the most time thinking about. He spoke about the liberation. And he says, yet at this very point, it becomes quite clear that only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. So, yeah, I really struggled with that. I think wondering is that really only, is there no way you can reach someone with an argument when they're in this position? And I didn't really like the thought that that may be the truth. And in that instance, he was writing from prison in Nazi Germany, and I think his view here is very understandable in that it definitely became necessary for the violence of war to remove the government in power at the time,
Right.
in order to bring about that external liberation. But I would hope that in situations that are not as dire, it wouldn't require a war.
Well, I mean, we've got one going on Russia, Ukraine, but
I think there may be a type of external liberation that comes from releasing people from fear.
yeah. No, yeah. You're exactly right on that.
So removing the power structure is one way to remove that fear. The only other alternative I can think of is a spiritual awakening that could remove the fear,
Mm-hmm.
even while that external threat is still present, so that you can be spiritually and then subsequently mentally liberated, even while that external enslavement is present.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree on that. Breaking the chains of fear is not easy, especially when the train is back on the tracks. I remember when we were talking about social media and how it's a constant deluge of fear. It's basically
Right.
it's like every day, and then thinking critically about that. So because we want humans to be autonomous and liberated and sovereign, like that takes a lot of doing, because the powers that be are constantly pushing the fear on them, trying to consistently strengthen the chains that they have managed to lock them up with. And so it takes a lot. I don't really know exactly what it would take, but
yeah, and I don't want to say that people need to be liberated from being in service to a power structure in order to break free from that and become solely serving their own individual power structure.
get a bunch of
I'm
little
not in favor of a world where everyone strives to be their own god. I don't think that's tenable.
No. Yeah,
So
I guess.
being in service to a higher moral authority,
Right.
I think is really important.
Yeah, I guess more what I was getting at was just that we would be free to make those decisions.
Yes. I think not having that domination that I guess takes away our ability to think about the morality of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That really is the key issue, the consideration of the morality of human actions.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Yep.
That's, yeah, as soon as you start dipping into morality and ethics, it gets into a very deep pool, trying to, figure out what.
Yeah, well, I feel like there was a quote where someone said something like looking into evil is, I don't know, you end up looking back at yourself and your own the own evil or potential evil within. And that can be scary as well.
Oh, absolutely. What else do we want to pick out of this?
Right at the end of this excerpt, he does mention the fear issue that we talked about, fear of man, and he says, the word of the Bible that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom declares that the internal liberation of human beings to live the responsible life before God is the only genuine way to overcome stupidity. So he definitely has maybe not the same thoughts that we had there, but a similar one that shifting away from the fear of man is a component in the liberation of the individual.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean that makes perfect sense that he would use, because he's quoting Proverbs, the book of Proverbs there, chapter 3 verses 4 and 5, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, being a pastor, that makes perfect sense.
He did end with another thought. He said, these thoughts utterly forbid us to consider the majority of people to be stupid in every circumstance. So I thought that was a useful note as well. When we see this phenomenon taking place and seeing people just bouncing the slogans back at us and being unwilling to have a decent discussion, we shouldn't think that it's impossible to have a good talk with them on every issue.
Yes.
And maybe that this effect is only in place on certain issues in their mind. So having some understanding of that is helpful. Yeah, I definitely I don't want myself to be in the mindset of writing people off as, they're stupid.
Yeah.
Again, I think understanding is the best way to go here.
Yeah. Having a presupposition, not having a presupposition of stupidity or ignorance, and striving to leave the conversation or encounter with both parties improved and learned, instead of like you said, just writing people off right off the bat. Don't want to do that.
So that closes looking at that section of Bonhoeffer's letters. I did find another quote I wanted to wrap that up with, and it was from Francis Bacon. He said, "The contemplation of things as they are, without error or confusion, without substitution or imposture, is in itself a nobler thing than a whole harvest of invention."
Wow.
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about that one all week.
And definitely, I think that's a good takeaway, is to spend some time to reflect on the deeper issues of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And go plant that tree.
Yes, exactly.
Stories in the news this week. We had, what was this? U.S. Senate candidate wants to make Dogecoin a legal tender in California.
I didn't know whether to put this as a win or a loss.
I don't know. I don't like legal tender laws at all. I think people should be free to use whatever money in the marketplace that they want to. So yes, I'm fine with Dogecoin being used as money by those who want to, but I think it's a bit absurd if it receives any privileged status. So this has got to be a PR stunt, surely.
Something for the votes, because it's a senator, and so it's like, oh, that's a win in a sense that, there's a government official talking about, making something a legal tender in the US, but like at the same time it's
Dogecoin.
I was gonna say
like the king of, it's like we kind of dissed Ethereum despite it being the number one in the pack of altcoins. Dogecoin's like the other end of the spectrum.
Oh man. So like I got a good chuckle. I was like, no, there's not, like that's neither a win nor a loss. And then I went, oh no, I gotta put that in there. Oh man.
A little more sobering. Today, actually, the Bank of Canada says monthly mortgage costs may go up by 30% over the next few years.
Ouch.
Yep.
Man
And
alive.
I believe that calculation was looking at a 2% interest rate hike
Holy smokes.
over the next 2 years, potentially, in order to try to rein in inflation. So at this point, it seems like they feel they have a choice to either let inflation continue or curb
Mm,
spending and
well,
have a recession. So
yeah,
they're kind
exactly.
of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And you can actually have both, despite Keynesians denying it. You can have the recession and inflation at the same time,
Yeah.
which is the double whammy.
Yeah,
So,
that was a wild part of the Bitcoin standard when he started comparing uh, Keynesians mindsets versus like a gold standard or a Bitcoin standard mindset on inflation and recessions. It was mind boggling.
yep. Did we see
I
anything positive in the news this week, though? Please tell me there was something.
I did see that there was a video on Twitter, and it was just this. It looked like just a ramshackled small town, uh, like third world of the third world countries, and there were people going and buying produce and food with a lightning transaction and wallet of Satoshi. So that was
Yeah, I
pretty
saw
darn
that.
sweet.
That was awesome. I think that was even in reply to someone who was, I think, dissing Bitcoin and saying how much better Apple Pay was. And yeah, talking up Apple Pay, it does totally gloss over how in developing countries they're not buying iPhones.
Mhm.
Who would have thunk? Um,
Hmm.
they also don't have access to the financial resources we do. Um, they're often referred to as the unbanked, and
Right.
I think the majority of people in developing countries don't have bank accounts or modern financial technology. So Bitcoin puts an incredible worldwide financial network into the hands of everyone with a cheap smartphone and basic data plan.
Yep. Yeah. So more people in my circle have been getting on to Shake Pay and Bitcoin. I did a 50-cent lightning transaction with my sister, showing her how it works. And I saw on ShakePay's Discord server that they're going to work on. They're calling it squads right now, but it's just in beta, or the beta hasn't even actually released. But basically, what it's going to do is allow you to group up with people who all use the ShakePay Visa card, and then everyone in the squad earns Sats on everyone else's purchases.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
That'll be interesting to see if there's a cap on rewards there, because you could really stack some sats.
it's I think if I understand the tagged post correctly, it's going to be there's going to be 5 people in a squad, and then it's just a set amount of sats. Like it doesn't matter how large the purchase is; it's just like a set amount of sats per purchase. And
Cool.
I don't know if there's a cap on how many purchases per week, but anyway, we'll see how that unfolds. Looks pretty cool.
Nice. So, if anyone has any comments on this episode, and I'm really hoping some of you are challenged enough to think about this and maybe send in some comments, your reflections on this topic, and we have an email address, and that is changingnormal@protonmail.com. So shoot us a message, and you can check us out on YouTube. If you want to try out that lightning tipping, if you're just getting into it, the lightning URL we're currently running is changingnormal@fountain.fm. And these are actually something I'm still learning about right now, the lightning network URL. And that's pretty cool technology. So our staff this week is on vacation, with the exception of our helpline coordinator, Don't Bother Me.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna have to get in
Which
touch
is how
with
I
you.
feel some evenings. And with
Hardworking
that,
guy.
yep. Thanks for listening. And remember, create your own new normal every day.